certified Casanova's perfect world crumbles after mystically transforming as a woman. As circumstances push him to learn the essence of being a woman, he starts to see the world in a new light, including being in love. In a bar somewhere in New York, Sam, a business executive and playboy, rolls his eyes over the chattering and sobbing women. He mockingly comments to the bartender on how incomprehensible they are, and the man couldn't agree more. Moments later, Andrew, his gynecologist best friend, arrives. He hasn't taken a seat yet, and Sam is already complaining about the women, comparing them to his ex-girlfriend Georgette. Andrew calmly advises him to get over it and find a permanent partner. Sam jeers at the thought of him settling down like his best friend. Cynthia, Andrew's fiancée, calls, and the executive immediately voices his distaste, which the woman returns with a casual insult. The gynecologist mediates the two and ends the call, but Sam continuously taunts him about his sweetness towards Cynthia. The following day, Sam strides confidently into his office, and Margaret, his assistant, welcomes him with an outstanding report. The superior casually promises her dinner, which she gladly anticipates. However, his boss's secretary, Melissa, informs him he's being summoned. Sam immediately hits on her, but when the secretary talks passionately about her interests, the man gracefully leaves her. Seymour, Sam's boss, welcomes him with a debaucherous comment about a woman's curves, which the younger businessman gladly accepts as an important note from a fellow womanizer. Melissa interrupts them to inform them that Lulu, the big boss of the lingerie company, has arrived, so the men proceed to the meeting place. At the same time, Mr. Cavallo passionately teaches him about more ways to woo a woman. Lulu alluringly greets Seymour about their adventurous night. She compliments Sam's appearance and the models they used for the previous show. Just like that, she walks out of the office, signaling that they have another successful business partnership. Seymour comments that Sam reminds him of a more twisted version of his younger self, but Margaret interrupts them by congratulating the executive for the success. Sam hastily praises her efforts while lying that he already mentioned her contributions to Seymour, who is clueless about it. The poor woman can only fake a smile as the big boss dismisses her. That evening, Sam and Andrew attend the bachelor party of Stefan, their common friend and Georgette's fiancé. The executive condescendingly greets him and calls beautiful women to entertain the groom. As Stefan becomes tipsy, Sam attempts to photograph him with the women to send to Georgette, so Andrew stops his best friend. Stefan calmly tells the women to entertain their other friend, so the displeased and buzzed Sam walks out of the room despite Andrew's reminders. The executive wanders the streets and finds an antique shop. Sam enters the shop and plays with some items until the shopkeeper approaches him and offers him tea, which he gladly drinks. The wise-looking man remarks about his fun evening, so the executive bitterly shares about the bachelor party. The shopkeeper immediately understands his distaste toward women and gently reminds him that trust is the core of relationships. Sam scoffs at this and comments about how silly Stefan is to trust Georgette. The shopkeeper stares at him and narrates a historical story about a woman being the key to winning a rebellion that makes them free citizens until now. The executive expresses his disbelief, so the shopkeeper advises him to live more and experience life to see the truth. Sam bids a casual goodbye to him, and the older man murmurs that they'll see each other soon. The following day, Sam wakes up in his apartment and sees a reflection of a woman in the mirror. He comments about this extraordinary dream and snoozes afterward. A moment later, he goes to the toilet to take a leak but realizes the dreaded truth about his body becoming a female. He screams, panics, and does his best to write his name. But after seeing the same penmanship, reality dawns on him that everything is real. He rushes to Andrew's clinic to meet his best friend, but the nurse and the patient tell him to wait his turn. Sam insults them and barges into the clinic where Andrew is currently performing a procedure with a patient. Despite being told off by the doctor and the patient, Sam insists on speaking with him. So Andrew politely sends the patient out and advises the unknown woman to see the psychiatrists in the building. Sam becomes more enraged as he frantically explains his identity. To convince his best friend, he cuts his hair and instructs his friend to run a DNA test. Andrew grabs the hair and tells him to go home and relax while escorting him out of the clinic. Unfortunately, after locking the door, the doctor throws the hair as he dismisses the story. Sam returns to his pad, but Lou, the security guard, calls his attention. Therefore, the executive introduces himself as Samantha, Sam's cousin who will stay in the residence for a while. That evening, Samantha drowns herself in liquor while listening to rock music when Andrew calls. calls. She hurriedly asks about the DNA test, but the doctor scolds her for joking around and asks about Sam's location before dropping the call. Andrew receives a call from Melissa, who's looking for Sam due to work. All the while, Cynthia keeps caressing her fiancé to get his attention. So when the call ends, she reiterates that Andrew shouldn't worry so much because the executive is an adult. However, Samantha calls him again, so Cynthia demands that he apologize or face consequences. Afterward, Andrew rushes to the clinic to find the strange woman's hair and his best friend's DNA sample. He sends it to the lab and requests the fastest result to end his concerns. Meanwhile, the office is in turmoil due to Sam's absence, which is very unusual, while Samantha becomes a couch potato basking in her unfavorable situation. Simultaneously, Cynthia whines about her fiancé's skills in bed, blaming his profession for the unsatisfying performance. The next day, Sam emails Seymour that he has an emergency family matter. In return, he's sending his cousin Samantha to take over his job until he returns, which the boss gladly accepts because he finds the name attractive. Soon, Samantha cluelessly buys a handful of clothes for her to use. The following day, she marches into the office with an unkempt appearance. Margaret immediately calls her attention, so she introduces herself as Sam's cousin, which the assistant easily believes, so she welcomes her warmly. After briefly greeting Melissa, she enters Seymour's office, which just finished having a sweet time with one of the models. She begins talking about business, but all Seymour does is hit on her, so she excuses herself. That evening, Andrew returns home to offer flowers and wine to Cynthia, who demands an apology. However, his phone rings, so the woman throws a tantrum again. This time, the geneticist Johnny informs him that the samples he sent are weirdly copies of each other, only in different genders. Cynthia commands her boyfriend to share his concerns, but Andrew's bewilderment keeps him from talking, making the fiancé storm out of the flat. The gynecologist barges into Samantha's place, and the woman celebrates for having someone believe her outrageous story. She narrates about the bachelor party night and asks for help from him. Though Andrew genuinely expresses his desire to help, he admits he's clueless, so they start by finding the shop. However, no matter how much they look for it, no one knows about the antique shop, so they split for the night and resume the next day. The more they spend time, the more similarities Andrew finds between the male and female Sam. Upon hearing the woman's suggestion to examine her body, the gynecologist freaks out and leaves, while the unbothered best friend jokes about their conversation with a stranger. Lulu meets Samantha for the first time at work, so the client demands Seymour send the new employee for a makeover. On the other hand, Margaret finds Samantha under the table, so she approaches her to offer help with anything since it's natural for women to help each other. Just then, Seymour interrupts them and dismisses Margaret to refer Samantha to a stylist because of a presentation they'll soon hold. When the woman declines the offer, reiterating she isn't a woman, the boss confidently approaches her and begins touching her despite her obvious disapproval. Therefore, she can't help but curse and jump over the table. Upon hearing this, Melissa instantly pops out beside her to ensure she's fine, so she walks away while the assistant shuts down Seymour's inappropriate behavior. Samantha soon arrives at a bar to drink her worries away, but an older man immediately hits on her, so she hurriedly leaves. Late that night, she experiences cramps in her abdomen, so she hurries to the bathroom, and her scream echoes. Early the next day, she barges into Andrew's residence, disrupting the couple's sweet moment. She frantically tells the gynecologist that she's bleeding, so Andrew informs her that she's having a period and needs some feminine things. Cynthia sees her and demands her fiancé send the stranger out, so Samantha mocks her bratty attitude. The girlfriend slaps her, so the best friend charges at her. Andrew carries Samantha away and sends her out of the house. Upon calling her Sam, Cynthia blows a fuse and throws a tantrum again, so the man kicks her out. Afterward, Samantha goes to the referred stylist Alexander Blondell. The woman tries to escape, but after seeing her appearance, Al scans her from head to toe and declares that she needs help. She's set for another meeting the next day, and the moment she steps into the boutique, Al throws a leotard at her to start teaching her how to move as a woman. Samantha strongly objects, so Al bets that if what he teaches her doesn't make men fall on her feet, he'll pay her his fees. The stylist pushes her in front of a mirror to proclaim that he'll do everything to make her bloom, starting with her posture. The following hours and days pass by quickly, with Al intensely teaching her how to wear stockings, flip her hair, sit elegantly, wear feminine clothes, put on makeup, and walk. Very soon, the stylist's hard work pays off, and their friendly relationship also blooms. One day in Andrew's clinic, the gynecologist calls a patient named Mrs. Smith. His attention is drawn to an elegant woman with a brim hat. When the woman lifts her face, the doctor is captivated by her beauty until he realizes it's Samantha. He frantically returns to his office, and his best friend follows him. Andrew gives her 5 minutes to explain her presence, so Samantha blames him for kicking her away. The doctor defends that she almost caused him and Cynthia to break up. He emphasizes that they can't return to the way things were because she's a woman now. Samantha expresses frustration about her appearance, but her best friend notes that she's beautiful. The woman dismisses this and asks about hormone therapy to return to being a man. Andrew explains that it isn't that simple, so he takes a book and shows him the procedure he has to do if Samantha is determined to have an operation to be a male. Shocked, Andrew consoles her, but she suddenly hugs him. The doctor distances himself so to diminish the awkwardness. Samantha acts brusquely and invites him to eat. Andrew timidly smiles in the restaurant after seeing her eat elegantly, so she proudly says she's taking lessons. Attempting to continue the conversation, Samantha asks if they can talk about Cynthia, but the doctor shuts down the topic as he proclaims they're doing well. Samantha stares at Andrew, making him self-conscious, until the woman asks if he means what he said about her appearance. Her best friend genuinely says he means it, soliciting the woman's satisfied smile as they continue to joke around. While walking down the street, Samantha asks about changes in her body, making Andrew's face scrunch in frustration upon misunderstanding that she missed her period. However, the executive clarifies that she doesn't feel as passionate as before, even after watching Men and Women. Andrew explains that women are different from men, as their feelings are connected to their level of passion. To make Samantha understand, he sums it up with women being complicated. The office calls her and she says goodbye to her friend, but she awkwardly asks if it's alright to call again to talk about the matter, which Andrew agrees with. Afterward, Samantha arrives in the office, and Margaret warmly welcomes her while praising her appearance. The assistant briefs her about the meeting with Lulu, which she genuinely appreciates. Samantha confidently strides to the meeting room, surprising Seymour and Lulu. Then, the client introduces her business partner Jean, who immediately kisses the executive's hand and asks to date her. Samantha politely turns him down while Seymour and Lulu interject to end the man's advances and get down to business. The presentation begins, but unlike the old Sam, the executive credits Margaret for preparing the presentation before explaining its contents. Simultaneously, Lulu warns Seymour to stop gawking at the gorgeous employee, or the company will lose the account. After the presentation, the boss grabs the chance to put his arm around the executive, but Samantha smartly avoids his advances while Lulu reminds the boss of her threat. Once alone with Seymour, Samantha insists on her salary raise and proclaims Margaret's promotion since the boss and the old Sam have been stealing her credits from years ago. She leaves the room, and Margaret asks about the meeting, so the executive reassures her that the credit will belong to her this time, including the previous one she deserves. The assistant expresses her gratitude and expresses her feelings toward the real Sam. This surprises Samantha, but Margaret points out that she believes the man is just putting up a facade, and deep down, he has a good heart. On the other hand, Cynthia caresses the sleeping Andrew. However, the boyfriend utters Sam's name, which freaks out the girlfriend as she concludes that the best friends are having an affair and aren't straight. Though Andrew tries his best to explain, the woman doesn't give him a chance and storms out of the house. The best friends hang out that afternoon, and Samantha comments about the apparent fight. Andrew walks away, not wanting to discuss the matter, so his best friend insists on playing football instead. The doctor instantly rejects her, but she approaches his friends and declares she can play with him. Andrew tries to mediate, but Stefan calls the men to play. Once the game begins, they all charge toward her. Stefan touches her inappropriately, so she argues with them. However, the men jeer at her, and Stefan insults her. Andrew instantly defends her, escalating the commotion. Joey, a common friend, stops them from brawling, and the doctor marches away. When Samantha follows him, he frustratedly yells at her to go away, venting his anger for breaking up with Cynthia. The executive returns home and can't help but cry her eyes out. Moments later, someone knocks on her door, only to reveal Andrew, who comes to apologize. Samantha tells him that despite not liking Cynthia if she is what her friend loves, she won't contradict anymore. Andrew responds that he's been confused lately, but the conversation is interrupted when he notices that his friend's back is aching. He instructs her to lie on the sofa, and he gives her a massage. However, he excuses himself when he realizes his body is reacting to her. Samantha also feels her body responding to his touch as he goes to the bathroom. Before she can further dwell on the thought, Cynthia talks about taking back Andrew. She proclaims how she has planned her life, and her fiancé is a rare find combine to make her plans perfect. Samantha asks her if Andrew has a say on anything, and the woman declares he has no choice. Then, Cynthia brings out a check to buy Samantha away from her fiancé. This further upsets the executive, but the woman is unfazed until Andrew appears. The doctor finally realizes his fiancé's true colors and sends her away. Samantha apologizes, but Andrew thanks her instead for saving him, and they share a toast of liquor. Then, the man asks her to be her date for Stefan's wedding, and she agrees. Soon, Andrew finds himself waiting in Al's boutique as Samantha fits some dresses. Once he sees her, he gets tongue-tied, and the stylist remarks about their relationship, which they instantly deny. Samantha jokes about playing the charm game that Al taught her, so she demonstrates it in front of Andrew, bewitching him further while the woman remains clueless. Late that night, Samantha begins exploring her female body. Hours later, Andrew receives a call that she's in the building. The man frantically cleans up his liquor bottles but realizes it's unusual for him to do so with his best friend. When Samantha arrives, she becomes embarrassed about what's bugging her, but the doctor encourages her to speak out. The woman shyly tells him that her issue has been resolved. Though Andrew feels the tension, he continues asking her to elaborate, which makes Samantha more embarrassed, especially when she shares that her body only responds when she thinks of the doctor. Andrew panics, but he further explains the matter in a medical sense, which he fails miserably as the tension in the room increases after Samantha declares that she can't help it. The doctor volunteers to bring some refreshments to cool them down and offers the couch for the woman to sit on. Samantha lies on it out of frustration and smells her best friend's blanket. Feeling comfortable, she approaches Andrew and smells him before she helplessly cuddles him, which the man allows. The following day, Samantha sees a baby and smiles as she touches her abdomen. She returns home and greets Lou as usual. However, upon opening her door, she discovers a note from the antique shop stating that she must choose tonight. Hours later, Andrew and Samantha attend Stefan's wedding, and the woman becomes emotional upon watching the scene, making her hold her best friend's hand. When the wedding ends, Samantha visits Georgette in the dressing room and gives her genuine advice on how to make the marriage life work in the long run, which the bride appreciates. Hours before midnight, Samantha goes to the balcony to contemplate, and Andrew puts his suit around her, which he cherishes. The doctor notices her distress, but the woman diverts his attention by asking him to dance. While dancing, Andrew asks what it's like to be a woman, and Samantha explains that her senses are heightened as she can sense the people's moods and how other women are checking her partner out. However, she adds that she'll only be a competition if Andrew doesn't fancy her, which the man affirms. After contemplating briefly, Samantha confesses that the feeling is mutual, surprising her best friend. Andrew admits that despite knowing the truth, he still feels that Samantha is entirely different from before. He approaches her and kisses her, which the woman responds to. Then, Samantha remembers the time and requests her beloved to drive to town before midnight if he trusts her. The doctor complies without further questions, and they finally see the antique shop. Before Andrew can react, Samantha kisses him and steps out of the vehicle. The man follows her to stop her, but the woman firmly prevents him from advancing further as she returns his suit. The shopkeeper hands her the tea, and her hands shakily take the cup while Andrew anxiously walks back and forth. Moments later, the doctor finally smiles as Samantha exits the shop. The lights in the store turn off, and the mystical establishment fades while the couple shares a heartwarming kiss.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.